All right, welcome to the third and final installment into your introduction to GIS videos here. And the purpose of this video is to provide a brief introduction to QGIS. So I've loaded it up here on my PC, and as you'll see, I'm using version 2.16. Regardless of what version you're using, the interface will look relatively the same. And so the big open area in the middle here is your data frame. So any layers that we add will show up in here and we'll interact with it here. On the top left, you have a browser panel, and that allows you to navigate to any data layers that you may have if you want to bring them in. And ultimately, when you bring them in, they're going to show up in a list here in the layers panel. There's all sorts of tools across the top. We'll explore a couple of those as we get working here. All right, so if I want to bring data in, what I've gone ahead and done is I've downloaded a number of layers from the City of Hamilton Open and Accessible Data website. And so this is what they look like in the file structure themselves. So here's a layer indicating colleges and universities. And what you'll notice is that for every layer, there's a number of different files associated with this. And these are the pieces that are necessary for the GIS to have the spatial information as well as the attribute information. What we're interested in, or the file that we are going to interact with the most, is the file with this .shp extension, commonly known as shapefiles. And so these shapefiles are a common format used for vector data. So if I want to bring in a given layer, what I need to do is, there's a couple of different ways I can do it. Actually, I can just grab this shapefile, pull it into my layers panel, and it should populate on the screen here. And alternatively, I can go to the folder I want in my browser panel, and I can pull in items from there. So I've brought in roads and now buildings. Maybe I'll bring in parks as well. And let's get an example of a point layer. So let's see if we can find schools. So let's bring in schools. Okay, and so here are different data layers on here. And so the way we interact with the data panel is using the tools up top. And so right now I have the pan map tool button selected, and that's my preferred tool for the most part. So if you left click on the map, you can drag it around. You can also zoom in using the zoom in or zoom out buttons. So if I turn that on and I just left click once, I'll zoom in a little bit. However, if you have a scroll wheel or a scroll pad on your laptop, you can just scroll in and scroll out as well to zoom in and zoom out. So as I zoom in here, what you're going to notice is that there's an incredible amount of detail here. So we have our building outlines and we have our street outlines. You'll also notice that so our schools can be represented, in this case, both a polygon in the buildings layer and as a point in the schools layer. We got parks over here. The colors when you bring a layer in are going to be assigned randomly. There's if you don't have any information telling it what color to be, it's just going to assign a random color. We'll talk a minute about how you might be able to style that appropriately. So you can control the way in which these layers are drawn. So I can take a layer and pull it down. And essentially the way this works is that the bottom most layers are drawn first, followed by the one above it, followed by the one above it, followed by the one above it. So you may have data that overlaps each other. And so the way that you arrange these will dictate which layer shows on top. I can also turn a layer off just by clicking this X and turning it off. And so if I just want parks on, I can do that. If I want parks and roads, et cetera, et cetera. If I want parks to display above the roads, I can do that. But it really depends on your purpose. So some of these tools are handy in terms of zooming. So perhaps the most important one is the zoom full button. So what may happen as you're working with this is that you may zoom way far out or you may scroll over and everything looks white. The most important button when this happens is this zoom full button, because what this will do is zoom you back to the full extent of this data. You may have certain items selected, and if you click zoom to selection, you'll zoom to that item. If you highlight a layer and you want to zoom to the extent of that layer, then you can use the zoom to layer button. So let's zoom back to the full extent here. Okay, so we see the geospatial information conveyed using a vector model here, but we also have attribute table associated with this data as well. So I'll turn back on the schools. What I'm going to do is right click and go to open attribute table. And what I notice when I do this is that there's a lot of information in here. And so the way this works is that every row is connected to one feature on the map. And so if I highlight um, whichever school this is. It looks like this is Calvin Christian. And I can say zoom to that feature. Let's try this one. Okay, so this one's a little easier to see. So this is Dundana Elementary School, and so this will zoom us into that feature. So here is Dundana School, and included in here we have all sorts of information about the community it's located in, its phone number, the type of school it is, the grade it is, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of powerful information that we have here to accompany the geospatial data. So the attribute table and the data frame are closely linked together in that if I can select one item on the map on the data frame and it will be highlighted in the attribute table or vice versa. So perhaps I'm interested in selecting a certain park in the parks layer. What I can do is use this select features button, and I have a number of different options here. I can select a certain feature by clicking on it. I can draw a polygon and select all features that fall in there. I can make a freehand shape or a radius. So I'm just going to use regular select by features. Make sure that my parks layer is highlighted, and then if I click on this, the entire polygon will be highlighted. And if I open up the attribute table for this now, what I'll see is that one of these is highlighted. So this parcel of land is the Shadok Golf Course. So if I want to unselect this item, I can use the deselect features from all layers, and then we're back to the original configuration here. So something to discuss before we go any further is the idea of coordinate reference systems. So what's advantageous in this example is that all the data that I'm using here are all created using a common coordinate reference system. And we can get information on that reference system in a number of different ways. So we can right click on a layer and go to properties. And if we go to general tab, we'll find information on the coordinate reference system. So what we learned here is that the coordinate reference system is this is the standard code for it. And what this tells us is that it's using the NAD83 datum, and the name of this reference system is UTM, or Universal Transverse Mercator, Zone 17 North. So, and that'll be the case for all the layers that we're using in this assignment. At the same time, we can set the coordinate reference system of the entire project, and we do that by clicking on this button in the bottom right here with the globe on it. And what that will bring up is a project properties window, which lets us set a number of different settings for the entire project. But what we are probably most interested in this panel is setting the coordinate reference system. And so I think in your instructions, you're sometimes instructed to turn on this enable on the fly. And so what this does is in cases where you may have data with a couple different coordinate reference systems, what QGIS will do with this enabled is that it will do an automatic conversion into a common coordinate reference system that you select in here. For what we're doing, we're going to pick the same reference system as our data is in, so we're going to have no potential conflicts with different reference systems. So we're going to use the NAD83 UTM Zone 17 North. Click Apply and click OK. All right, so right now our features, as I mentioned, are just randomly assigned a color, a shape, a size. We can modify all of that by right-clicking the layer that we're interested in and going to Properties. And so when we do that, our dialog box pops up again, and we can go to Style. And so once we've done that, you have all sorts of ability to style this, customize it in whatever way you want. So here's the default color for roads. So maybe I want this to be more of a blue gray, and maybe I want this to be a little bit wider. So let's go with that. The rest of this looks fine. I'll apply this. And so now we have a bit thicker roads, and that looks okay for what I'm interested in. Schools, maybe we want to style a little bit differently, so I can go to Properties, Style. We can use a simple marker if we're interested in that. We also have a number of other markers here as well that may be of interest. So maybe I want to represent this as a triangle, maybe distinguish it a little bit more. Color, maybe I'll use, let's see if we can find like a schoolhouse red. Sure, that looks good. Size is, we'll make that a little bit bigger so these show up a little bit better, and click Apply. So now when you click OK, you'll notice that we've styled this a little bit differently here. And so you can continue to follow this process to style all elements of your map to ultimately give the look that you're interested in.